Little recruiting news, right? Last weekend, big recruiting weekend. And some predictions have rolled in as a result of that. Williams Nwaneri, think I nailed that.
Yeah.
Williams Nwaneri, multiple outlets have put a prediction in, right? Which I don't know how much that means, but it's better than not having one. I know that he'll end up at OU. This guy is 6'5", 250 plus, out of the state of Missouri. A defensive lineman you could see playing inside and outside. Got really good length from what I could tell just watching some of the highlight clips. He's the number 9 overall player in the 24/7 Sports composite, and he's actually 24/7 Sports number 3 overall player in their rankings. But Ted, we've talked a lot about the need for elite physical traits along the defensive line, and being in and having, these predictions that the guy like this is favoring OU. This is what we're talking about.
Yeah. Apparently the people that have known about him and watched him and talked about him say that, he's one of those guys that he's ranked incredibly high and should be, but is still one of those guys that really is just starting to, get into his full development and the scratch the surface, so to speak, of what he can be. So yeah, that's exciting. And, he's not the only one. That's big news that all of a sudden that everyone's starting to feel like Oklahoma's going to be the leader for him. And there's a long way to go, as you mentioned. But they got a chance, not just with him. A lot of people feel that they're the leader for David Stone, who's one of the top defensive linemen. There's a couple of other guys that are right there at the top of the list, and Oklahoma is starting to not just be in on some of the best defensive linemen across the country, but starting to lead in that category, building off of what they did last year. I mean, I know they didn't land Hicks, but there's some they were in to have Hicks if there wasn't some outside influence, right? And that's a real reality of what we're dealing with now. But they're in the game on the top defensive lineman that they want to be in on, and that's got to be so far the best development of the Venables tenure.
I think this is the best way to put it. You see a guy like Williams Nwaneri, you see a guy like PJ Adebawore, right? It's starting to feel normal that OU is in the mix for that type of player.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Guys that everyone across the country want, and they're seriously considering OU, whether that's OU ends up in their top 5 or their top 3, or they end up going to OU like Adebawore did. Like that's starting to feel like I saw this news and I wasn't like, oh my God. It was one of those, okay, like, yeah, that's it's starting to feel normal, which I think is a very, very good development, like you mentioned.
This time last year, we'd be throwing a ticker tape parade, right?
Yes, we would have been like, oh my gosh, this is,
It's not a
look at it.
commitment. He hasn't signed, but some people think he may come to OU. Oh my God, unbelievable. So yeah, you're right. It's starting to feel like this is going to be consistent moving forward.
Yeah, and I do think it's a good reminder, and I know the season's a long way off, but it's a reminder that they got to show some progress this season defensively.
Yeah.
Right? Because you've got all this excitement still about Venables and what he's been able to do when it comes to putting guys in the league. You've got the SEC move that's coming. Like there's a ton of excitement, the new facility that, that got the budget approved, all of that stuff, right? But you got to play some better defense so that these defensive prospects are like, okay, yeah, they not only has he done it in the past, now he's doing it there at Oklahoma. That's the thing. Like that's the most important next step in my mind, is putting a better defensive product on the field.
Yeah.
because clearly whatever they're doing on the recruiting trail is working, right?
Yeah.
Whatever Chavis and Bates and Venables and that entire staff are selling it is working with the results that they've gotten. But now it's about the on-field product for me.
Yeah. Well, and I agree. And I'll tell you this. Coach Venables told me the other day that he essentially said, can't wait for you to come out and see these guys this spring. There is a noticeable difference between our team right now and where they were a year ago. So I'm excited about that. We'll see. And I believe it. You look at the roster, it would be hard for there not to be a noticeable difference, right? I mean, just in the measurables, the roster's getting bigger, the length, and not to mention, they still get to go through some offensive, defensive stuff too. And the base they've got right now, and I know terrible year, but they've got a good knowledge base underneath them. So the things that they're doing right now, gearing up for spring, they're light years ahead of where they were a year previously.
Yep. One other recruiting tidbit, multiple outlets have predicted that 4-star running back, oh boy, Tavani Tavani Mazel.
Yeah.
Thoughts? Do we nail it?
I was thinking
Mizell.
that Tavani Mizell
That sounds sweet. We'll
maybe
go with that.
sounds better, but I don't know if that's necessarily it.
Well, if he ends up going to OU, I guarantee you we'll study the old pronunciation guide and we will nail it. But a lot of predictions that he's going to be a Sooner here. He's the number 18. He's the 18th ranked running back in the class of 2024. 6', 195 out of state of Maryland. And whether this is right or wrong, Ted, he was committed to Georgia. He decommitted from Georgia. Now a lot of people think he's going to go to OU. Give me all the guys that Georgia wanted that decommit from there and want to go elsewhere. I'll take them all. They have proven that they're pretty damn good at evaluating. So if he had a committable offer, which is now a thing, right? If he had a committable offer to Georgia and he wants to come to Oklahoma instead, sign me up, baby. Sounds good.
Which, is it's another sign, right? Just like we're talking with the defensive line, this is starting to be routine. Some of the guys that we've offered were up against the Georgias, the Alabamas, the LSUs, the Clemsons, and we're not winning all of those, but those are the battles that we're fighting, right? And we're winning some. We're winning quite a few of them. There was a time where we weren't winning any because we weren't even engaged in any of those battles, right? Now we would offer some guys and lose out, just really no contest, but now we're in the battle with those guys, and you're going to win some and you're going to lose some. But the fact that you're engaging with the top tier of recruits and fighting those battles with the top schools, I think that's as encouraging as it can be.
Yeah.